So Shkya, nice sitting down with you today. And it is evening, but no one can really tell. Like it could be any time of day. We could be on a beach or we could be in our houses. It doesn't really matter, right? Because like we live in the Zoom world now, right?
I
So
was going to say, with COVID, no one's on the beach. Everyone's at home, safe to say.
I like to kind of pretend sometimes. It just gets me through the day. We were laughing before we went on camera, like about being in insurance and how insurance is boring. So it took people like you and me to come into the industry to make insurance interesting, right? So um,
It's fascinating now.
yeah, high hopes for no pressure, by the way.
Yeah, none.
I should never start with something like that. So Shkya, tell me, before we get into the nitty gritty of, because you're here on behalf of Eddy Solutions today, and I want to unpack that and talk about the business side. But like we've all kind of been cooped up for the last little while, and there's lots of stuff going out into the stratosphere, podcasts and virtual conferences and this and that. But like how do you get through it? What do you do to keep yourself sane, other than talk to guys who have nothing better to do at 7 o'clock in the evening on a weekday?
That's a good start for me because lucky for you, I have no plans at 7 o'clock in the evening as well with COVID. Honestly, I think right now we're just trying to make the best of it. I think, like, even for me, I'm starting to get used to this whole virtual meeting. It's like, how are we going to go back to the real world?
Yeah.
I used to drive about 45 minutes to get to work, and now I go down the stairs and I'm in my office. So it's going to be a big transition to start kind of getting into that routine. And I think just about keeping these fun. Like I like to get ready in the morning and turn on my camera just so it actually makes me feel like I'm going somewhere, even though
Right.
I'm not. I find little things and trying to keep the same routine I had before helps me stay sane. And the fact that we're really busy also helps. My
Yeah.
days go by very, very quickly. So that is a big plus right now.
But you got to find an outlet, right? Because I think at least my observation, and we're in one industry. If you look around your neighbors, everyone's kind of doing something different. But I haven't had a struggle staying or feeling busy during all of this.
Mhm.
But you got to kind of have an outlet, I guess, right? So, is your outlet? Do you have an outlet like cooking, running, cats? We talked earlier about collecting wolf T-shirts from
Yeah,
the
that was
'80s.
not me for the record. Let's just clarify that before this is misinterpreted. I have zero wolf shirts.
Okay,
No, honestly, I'm not much of a runner. I should be. I like to go for outside for a quick stroll. I'm starting to
yeah,
get into gardening,
nice.
which is not very exciting, but I mean, I'm trying to grow my own basil and dill and that kind of stuff. But not really. I think I just kind of keep occupied throughout the day between getting up in the morning, starting your day, going to work. By the
Yeah,
time I'm done my day, it's 7 o'clock at night, and you're kind of unwinding, getting dinner done. You go to bed, and start it all over again. So it doesn't
yeah.
really leave a lot of room for anything else at this point, honestly.
It's funny how I was on the road the other day, and I realized I caught myself in this moment of reflection, and that was usually what I would do on my commute home. Going to work, it was different, but I thought, oh, I forgot what this felt like, almost to have like an actual pause or break in the day between, oh, I'm switching gears from work John to home John. And that
Mhm.
20-minute drive or 45-minute, depending on where I was coming from, allowed me to kind of do that. So it's interesting how you said that. Like I feel like a lot of us are kind of just working longer hours and, less traditional schedules. And then it's like, is there any real gas left in the tank at the end of the day? So gardening is a great, very therapeutic thing to do. Um, and you're kind of into water, or your company is.
Yes.
Yeah, so I found a connection there. So
Yeah.
so let's talk about Eddy Solutions. First off the bat, Eddy Solutions. What's an Eddy? First of all, like because it's an odd name.
Yeah.
It's not a name you think of all the time, but it's spelled differently than you would normally see, like the name Eddy. So why don't you start there? Tell us what Eddy Solutions is all about.
Yeah, so really funny. I think one of the things that I always get asked really common is who's Eddy?
Yeah.
Nobody. There's nobody by the name of Eddy. So Eddy actually just refers to destruction of water. Swirl of water is Eddy. So
Okay.
that's how we came up with Eddy Solutions. So we're a North American manufacturer of IoT water devices. We provide hardware and full service for all different property types. So it makes us a very good candidate for the insurance market, as we're able to prevent water damage claims for them. And we've heard that's a problem. So I'm sure we'll dig into that.
Yeah. Well, they say water is the new fire. And back in the day, when you're selling farm policies, it was like the fire rider was separate, and because that was so common, and that's how you protected yourself. And now it's water is the new sexy thing, right? So I guess water's where you want to be. I'm glad you cleared up the Eddy thing, because I actually fell into that trap. I thought there might be an Uncle Eddy somewhere.
No, but we've been looking for an Eddy to hire just so we can start telling people that there's an Eddy. I've actually had people ask me if I'm Eddy, and I was like, I don't know if that was a name for me. I'm not Eddy, but there's nobody by the name of Eddy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, and that's a good education piece, because it's a great segue into what you do, because what you do is in the name. And it's interesting enough that, it's going to make people curious. So Eddy Solutions started in 2014. Is that right?
So we really started a lot of our planning in 2014. We had our product ready. So when we first started, it was actually our flagship product, our Eddy IQ.
Okay.
That was the only product that we had in 2014. And we actually officially launched in 2015 in the residential space.
Okay.
And that was kind of where our story all began, with the IQ meter in the residential space. And from there, we grew.
Okay. And so, like, a lot of insurtechs listening, because this is relevant to kind of like the journey of a startup. Oftentimes you end up building a product or service.
Yeah.
And you're like, again, a product or an invention or an innovation before you actually become a company. And it's hard to kind of put your finger on when that actually happens. Like, when do you actually start becoming a company? Is it the day you get your articles of incorporation? Is it the day you have your first sale? Is it after you get past 5 employees, or you have like recurring revenue of a certain amount every month? I think it's different for everybody. But the Eddy IQ piece, so that was like the first iteration of Eddy Solutions. If I was to kind of like map it out on a like dot it out on a map, major milestones, what was the next big phase for Eddy Solutions after the Eddy IQ, and you guys kind of got traction in the market with that product offering?
Yeah, so we started off with the Eddy IQ in the residential market, and it's an ultrasonic meter. It provides automatic remote shutoff, just to give a little bit of background there. When we first started in the residential market with the IQ meter, we actually started with Wi-Fi meters. That was our first kind of connection that we had, was Wi-Fi meters. Worked really well in Canada because everyone's water mains is in their basement because the weather is cold. Right. Then we started to actually get some traction in the US, and the next market we were in was California. In California, everyone's water main is outside, so your Wi-Fi connection is not that strong. So we started to transition into also having cell meters. So I think another thing that's really important part of a startup or any kind of innovation with a product is evolving and making changes as you need to, based on the market and the clients you're going to have. So we went to the IQ that was Wi-Fi, moved to an IQ that was cell. And from there, we wanted to add to our product line. So the great thing about the IQ meter is once it's installed at the main, it could detect a leak and it could shut the water off to ensure a property is protected. But the only thing it couldn't do is tell you where the leak was coming from. So we wanted to take that one step further, and that's where we got our Eddy H2O sensors. So our sensors are placed anywhere that there's high-risk areas, exposed plumbing, appliances, and it'll actually give you the precise location of where the water is detected. Oh, wow. And we wanted to take that one step further, because another thing that's really important when dealing with water presence is also having insights into temperature and humidity as well. So we wanted to kind of make a 3-in-1 sensor where you're getting the water, the temperature, as well as the humidity. And from there, the evolution came, well, residential is not the only property type that's dealing with water damage. Yeah. So as we're talking to insurers, as we're talking to other clients, we're starting to get engaged in discussions. Well, can you do a commercial building? Can you do a high-rise building? Can you help us with builder's risk during course of construction?
Yeah.
So from there, we started to create our Eddy link, have valves, because our IQ meter was only available up to 1 inch. That is not going to work for a high-rise building, considering their valve sizes are significantly larger. So from there, we started to continue to add to our suite of products, added our Eddy link and valves up to 24 inches to be able to accommodate these different property types. And another thing, as we were kind of creating, we realized when you're dealing with a high-rise building or any kind of commercial property, there's brick, mortar, cement walls. Your typical Wi-Fi and cell wasn't going to give you the connection you need. And one thing that's super important for a company that's going to stop water damage is connectivity. So we actually started to deploy LoRaWAN as our main connection platform, which really gave us the ability to scale our products, but also make sure that we're getting ourselves, as well as our customers, the best connection throughout every project that we do.
Very cool. Very cool. So that's like the LoRaWAN is like a backup layer almost. Like if my Wi-Fi goes out, does that provide a connection, like a steady connection?
So yeah, it's a gateway. We use LoRaWAN gateways, and it backhauls through Ethernet or cell for it to collect all the data points. So it doesn't actually need Wi-Fi. So for, of course, a construction project, we'd be able to backhaul with a cellular gateway that would get us the connection that we need.
Very cool. Very cool. So there's a lot of stages there. Again, this is important for other insurtechs out there that are listening, is that oftentimes, like, what you think the company, why you develop the company, if you're not listening to the market, you could miss something really important. And it's never really going to be, you talk to all the founders I talk to, all the insurtechs I talk to, it never ends up being totally what you thought it was, right? Doesn't mean that you change the identity or the vision or anything like that, but you got to listen to what the market is telling you. And I think sometimes startups get so focused on, this is what we went out to solve. This is the problem. This is why we exist. And they ignore that customer feedback. So I guess where I'm segueing here is, when you guys started out, first of all, did you develop this product for the insurance industry? Did you set out to be an insurtech company from the start? I'll stop there and then I'll ask a follow-up question.
Yeah, honestly, no. Okay. This is a problem that is applicable to everybody, whether you're an asset owner, a constructor, a developer, just a homeowner, right? Yeah. So I think insurance was kind of a bonus. And the way that we saw insurance when we were launching in the residential space, it would be kind of a supporter of our product. So very similar to an alarm system company. You go in and you install an alarm system for theft, and you get a certificate and you send that into your insurer. And if they offer an incentive, you get some sort of discount applicable. So I think insurance wasn't our main focus as a target to say, hey, we want to be an insurtech. We created this product for insurance, but we're well aware that insurance industry had a lot to gain from a product like ours.
Right. And so were your first customers insurance, or you brought your solution to the market and sold directly to the end user?
Insurance are not quick movers, as
no, really?
They like to take their time and really feel out a product and figure out how they want to go to market. Honestly, insurance was too slow for us to go that route. Right. We had a really great product. We had a big vision, and we thought the quickest way to go out to the market was direct to consumers when we were doing residential. Okay. But one of the things we found out really quickly is if the average person didn't have a water damage claim or experienced it, they don't know how common it is.
Right.
So it kind of took us a step back saying, wow, we have to do a lot of educating, building a lot of awareness. As a new company coming in, that's a really big tool to take on. Yeah. So I think that's where the insurance layer came in and say, hey, you know what? Let's leverage these insurance companies. They have the clients. They have millions of clients. They can reach out to one through an email or some kind of marketing campaign to be able to engage their clients and build that awareness and educate. And it's so much more powerful for an insurance company to tell you, well, 48% of residential claims are water damage than for a leak detection company who's trying to sell you water mitigation devices to tell you that. And then I think another thing that kind of pivoted us around, we realized that the insurance companies don't actually talk to the customers. So we needed to engage with brokers. Yes. Brokers were the key. And not to mention, honestly, it's just hard getting through to insurance companies. I think any kind of startup would know that you're not going to instantly get an in. These companies are so large, and the people that work there don't even know who to direct you to half the time. So we kind of took a step back. We said, you know what? We need to go to brokers. Let them be the one to help us build awareness with the consumers and ultimately help push us to the insurance companies as well, right? Because they're the client for the insurance company. So the insurers want to make sure their brokers are happy. Ultimately, they get their business and their clients are happy. So one of the things we found are brokers are really busy. So quickly we adjusted and said, hey, what is the quickest way to a broker's heart? Rebo accredited courses in Ontario. So we created Rebo courses. They have to get certain number of hours. And we started to educate brokers on leak detection. Hey, this is a problem. You guys are well aware this is a problem, probably better than us, just by the number of water damage claims and clients you deal with. Here's the technology that's out there. Here's how Eddy can assist, and here's how we can work together. And the brokers really help drive that message, building awareness with their clients, as well as kind of reaching out to insurance companies and saying, hey, are you looking at these technologies? What kind of incentives are you looking to provide? And kind of forcing some of the insurers' hands into saying, you need to get involved and learn more about what's happening in this space.
Yeah. I'm glad you unpacked that the way you did, and you almost kind of showed a bit of the playbook. So many people run to the carriers because they're so big, and Canada especially is so consolidated. And in the P&C space, you've got 10 carriers controlling like 85% of the market or something in that range. But again, they go through like a 3 to 5 year decision cycle, and nothing happens overnight. And most startup companies can't last that long. There's such a cash burn and short runway that you're never going to last through even that sales cycle. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power of the broker. And there's over 25,000 brokers in Canada, and they still distribute on the commercial side the majority of insurance. And personal, they're very relevant. And I think you really highlighted a point there, because if you watch some of our previous episodes, we are definitely advocate for the broker and the advisor. And a lot of people are surprised by that because it says InsurTech Canada. So everyone assumes because we're so tech focused that we're not looking at the human value. And I'm a big believer that the technology just empowers the humans, right? And they're tools to help us give better advice and to ultimately deliver a better outcome to the end user. So talking about the broker strategy is so important, because another part of the reason why we developed this podcast in this format was for outsiders trying to come into the industry, the insurance industry. Navigating this industry, any new industry, but navigating this industry it's very complex. And even for folks who have been around it for multiple years, it's still complex. And there's long sales cycles, there's multiple layers. Most carriers, they manufacture, some of them see themselves as just manufacturing a product. We don't distribute the product. That's up to the brokers. Some are more direct with their digital channel. Some have agency models. So you really have to kind of know the lay of the land. And that's how you're going to kind of, maybe land something with someone. But I don't think you can ever really focus just on one strategy. You can't just be broker focused only or carrier focused only. You almost have to kind of, work those two things in parallel. Would you say that's accurate for you? While you were having the broker conversations, you guys were also talking to the carriers at the same in parallel?
Yeah, I think one of the things you touched on is, as a startup company, you got to go after everything. We can't just focus on just the insurance segment or even just the broker segment. I think for us, because of how big the market is for a technology like ours, it's so much larger than insurance. We're talking to developers, some of the largest developers in Canada. We're dealing with the largest constructors in Canada. We're dealing with quick service restaurants, retail shops. And I think through also leveraging all these different client bases for us, it goes to the insurer. Right? So we have these massive developers that are saying, hey, well, if I'm going to invest in a leak detection company, shouldn't my insurance recognize this? And now they're going and engaging in conversation. So I think the broker, the insurance is just a segment for us, which helps support all the different areas that we focus on. That's a startup. You gotta run, right? You gotta run in every avenue that you can. And another great area for us has been restoration, which I think falls into insurance as well, right?
Right.
It's just I always say, I think the best part and the hardest part about Eddy is that we can sell to everybody.
Yeah.
But it's also really hard because you can't just focus in and say, well, we're an insurance product and all we sell is insurance. I think insurance is a segment we sell to, but really what we're looking for from the insurance market is the endorsement saying, hey, this technology is great, it works. And you know what? Because I'm significantly mitigating my risk because water is a huge risk for me, here's what I'm willing to provide to the client for being proactive and protecting themselves against water damage.
Yeah. And that's like, I'm glad you talked about being proactive, because a lot of these tools that we feature here that are being developed, a lot of it is about helping the client avoid the claims process altogether. And, you know, giving them tools. And then hopefully, and I think whether that's a commercial building developer or that's, you know, someone who just owns a private home, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning saying, I want to make a claim. And so I think that has enough value on its own. And obviously the market told Eddy that. And then you hope the insurance industry catches up and then maybe recognizes that in kind with some sort of a discount or some other product. And I think that's an important piece too. So for you guys, you started in the residential space. Was there a reason you started in residential and you didn't start in commercial? And was there a particular market that told you? And where I'm going with this is like, how did you know there was a problem? Like, other than the fact that, you know, catastrophic weather events and water and all that stuff is more frequent, was there something that told you we need to go into the residential space? We need to start there, and we know that there's a problem no one else is solving?
The truth is we had a product for the residential space. The IQ meter was available up to 1 inch. So for residential homes, 90% of them will be up to 1 inch the valve size, which means we can accommodate install. So at that time, we didn't actually have a suite of products that would be able to support anything outside of the residential. Right. And then actually really interesting story, how we got into things outside of residential market was a building reached out to us. They had 3 or 4 claims. This is again, like 5 years ago. They had 3 or 4 claims over $500,000, $2 million. And their last one was like 1.5 million. And the insurer was done at this point. And it was all internal plumbing things. They're like, my insurance is ready to cut me off. I can't get insurance. I need leak detection. What can you provide me? And at that point, we're like, we have 1 inch valves. We might not be able to do this. And I think that's what engaged us, saying, you know what, there's a bigger picture we're missing. And even some of the insurance companies I was talking to about the residential, they all had book of businesses that were for Corsa construction, operational buildings. And I started to ask, hey, is this a problem for you guys in this space as much as it is in residential? And the answer is, yeah, not only do we have the same problem in terms of the frequency of the water damage claims, but they're costing us significantly more than what it costs to fix a residential home. Yeah. So it kind of ticked for us saying, hey, you know what? We're not taking full advantage of the market, and we're kind of selling ourselves short if we only focus on residential. But I also think it's really important to note that when we started in residential, it's a lot easier than it is to do a high-rise building.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's not even the suite of products part, but one of the things that's probably the most impressive part about leak detection is the ability to identify a leak. Right. So in a residential home, you don't have as many water appliances running. You have your dishwasher, you have your laundry machine, but for us to build our algorithms and utilize behavioral learning, it's a lot simpler to get that data and put it together. When you get into a high-rise building and you're dealing with hoist suites, risers, fan coil units, and just boiler systems, a ton more product and appliances that you need to account for. So I think it was a really good place for us to collect the data that we need, master the residential, and then be able to grow from there.
That's really cool. And that's almost like finding a test market, right? And resisting the temptation to boil the ocean and go too big, too fast. Master one segment, and then, you know, take time to listen to the voice of the customer, and then the market will probably tell you where to go next if you're listening. So that's really cool that you shared that. So I wanted to talk also about your distribution model. Like, how do you get your products to the market? Because I could see insurance companies recommending it. I know as a policyholder, actually Eddy Solutions showed up on my renewal recently. So that's a great feather in the cap for you guys. But how do you guys get your products to the market on the commercial side and the residential side typically?
Well, a lot of different ways, actually. So when I first told our story, we were going direct to consumers. That probably changed about 4 years ago, where we're like, you know what? There's so much market that we can't go direct to consumer. One of the things we wanted to do, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to ask, like, on the direct to consumer though, sorry to interrupt your thought. How did you even build the awareness with the consumers? How does the average homeowner even know that they should?
One customer at a time.
Wow.
One customer at a time, John, which is why we change strategies quickly. Saying, you know what? This is way too much, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to explain, hey, water damage is a problem. This percentage of people have water damage claims. You might have not experienced something, but has a friend or family. So one of the things we wanted to do is, you know what, let's just work out the best strategy to get as much awareness as we can through strategic partnerships, which is why we started to work with insurance companies that would recommend our product on the residential side, outside of even the residential side. Brokers became a big avenue of marketing for us. Co-branded marketing material to their clients to introduce, hey, this is Eddy, this is what they do. There might be incentives you can get from your insurer. Developers, constructors, we work with one of the largest constructors, PCL, that is installing our equipment. So just really great strategic partnerships, working with companies that really see the value of leak detection for themselves and also for their end users as well. So we actually have channel partners. So we work with a couple of just really great companies that have been really able to excel our reach that we wouldn't be able to do going to each customer individually.
Very cool. Very cool. Did you ever go into the retail space at all? Try any like big box partnerships or anything like that? Was that ever?
You know what? I think it's something that we never did it. It's something that we thought about, but again, I think it's more applicable to residential.
Yeah.
And one of the things that didn't fit for us as a business is we're so much more than a hardware company. Mm-hmm. So we're not just a product company where you get a product and you're kind of out of the store and it's done. The way that Eddy works is surrounded by providing a really great service. So giving the product, taking care of installation, having access to 24/7 monitoring center, being able to get service, warranty, support. So it's such a holistic approach that we take to water risk management that to sell an off-shelf product wasn't really what worked for us as a company.
I'm glad you went there because you just described a lot of parallels to like a home security company with a monitoring center and, there's alerts and everything else. And can I turn this technology off and on, like with my smartphone as a residential user? Is that capability there?
I'm glad you asked. Yeah. So we have our Eddy Home app. Through our app, the residential homeowner has access to remotely shut off their water from anywhere in the world.
Wow.
For anything outside of residential, we have our property management dashboard. So if there's a leak in the riser, we can either have it automatically shut off, and all of this can be configured, or the property manager can actually remotely shut off the water themselves.
That's amazing. So you're putting the power really in the client's hands, and then you have the ability to do the remote monitoring as well.
Yeah. The truth is, especially in the home, we have access to so many things as it relates to like your Ring doorbell that you can see who's outside your house using your phone, and you can change your thermostat, the temperature using your phone. It's like, why wouldn't you have access to your water, right? To be able to remotely shut it off, shut it on, or get the consumption data. I think as Canadians, maybe conservation isn't top of mind, but that's also because we don't know how much water we use till we get our water bill. Maybe if we had more insights, we can make wiser decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And so here's maybe an odd question on like cybersecurity, because this is like the hot topic now that everyone's talking about. So if I'm in the shower and like my neighbor wants to play a joke on me and he's like, I can hack into my system, what kind of security do you guys provide to make sure that
First, I advise you to move. You should definitely consider moving before worrying about the system. No, for us, we're adhering to all the security standards. We work with insurance companies, and I'm sure you can appreciate the layers of security that you need to be able to adhere to prior to getting any customer information. So we spent a few $100,000 and put together a security team. And I can't tell you every single security certification that we have, but I can say we have all of them.
Right.
And we've gotten stamp of approval from them. So your neighbor should not have access to anything to do with turning off your water.
Okay, that's great to know. I think they're using my Wi-Fi, but I can't prove it. And I
consider moving.
And I hope they don't watch. I don't think they watch anything I put out there, so they're probably not watching this. So jokes aside on that, then. So stage of the company. So you guys, you've started out as a residential company. You were going like kind of the onesies and twosies here, and then you went to the strategic partnership route, multiple distribution channels. You got big partnerships like PCL. You guys are rock stars now. Like you guys own everything, right? Like what's next for Eddy Solutions? Are you guys, are you fundraising? Do you have investors? Are there future ambitions around taking the company to another place?
Yeah, so we're a Series A company. And again, like the strategic partnerships have even been a very important aspect of the investment component, right? Mm-hmm. For us, there's so many more things coming for Eddy. I think we've kind of just scratched the surface. The truth is, it's just there's so much market. We were predominantly focused in Canada, and now our big expansion is in the US. So working with US carriers as well has been a big focus of mine. We want to be able to not only help the Canadian insurers or the Canadian market, but really be able to propel our solution into other markets like the US market and really be a full North American manufacturer of IoT devices.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so I'm glad you talked about Series A, and I'm going to go down that path a little bit. And if we have to edit any of this out, I can do that. So because sometimes fundraising and like the nuance behind it, none of it wants to talk about that, which I totally respect because some of that's confidential, internal only. But whatever you're at liberty to talk about, from being a Series A company, why that's so relevant to this conversation and to the community here that we've developed and the ongoing dialogue we're having is Canada has a problem right now. And we're doing our part to try to contribute towards the solution. We have a shortage of Series A, seed to Series A funding. And there's only about a dozen companies in Canada that are venture capital companies that are really getting into that space. And, the Series B space is very crowded, and a lot of companies can't ramp and can't get to that stage, before they just run out of runway. And what ends up happening is they either fold up shop or they go south and we never hear about them again. And we talk a lot about that on this podcast. So as much as you can elaborate, was your Series A funding, was your fundraising efforts all in Canada? Or did you experience that as well, where it came to a point where it was like, we just can't scale this company to the next level without going to the US. And it's not just for customers, but we have to go to the US for capital as well.
You know what? No, we've stayed generally for the capital in Canada. I want to say majority. I also want to emphasize the fact that the team that we have, our founder, our CEO, president, they're all entrepreneurs. So we were already funded from past ventures and success that they've had in their previous companies as well. So to be honest, we didn't really start off as a startup company that had very little capital, because the truth is to be able to scale a business like this, you need to start off with quite a bit of capital. So I think for us in that regard was probably a little bit different than the standard startup company that would need to kind of hustle their way to be able to move to the next stage. We were very lucky in that sense.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because some companies are at the point where it's like, we need work orders or purchase orders, but we don't want too many because we don't have the capital to fulfill all of those purchase orders, because then we have to go out and buy inventory to like make these things. And in your case, you guys were making IQ meters. So there's tech there, right? Are those made by Eddy, or do you work with a third party, with a partner? Is that proprietary technology that you guys developed?
Yes, so we are Canadian owned and operated. I'm sure you'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Our head office is in Canada, our 24/7 monitoring center is in Canada, and our warehouse where we assemble the products are in Canada as well. So
Awesome.
literally everything is in-house. It's actually all in Toronto, so Ontario. We have everything in-house that we take care of ourselves.
Awesome. Oh, and what's the feedback you get from our friends in the U.S.? And I always make sure to reinforce this. I'm not against U.S. expansion. I actually encourage it. I just think there's a lot of great companies that can get their start in Canada and be very successful in Canada. And some, need to go south, some don't. Some, go international. But you can get a successful start in Canada. So going into Canada, you're selling to Americans. They're further ahead in a lot of regards, a lot of respects in the insurtech space. They're also no stranger to water losses, and the insurance space there is a little more crowded. What kind of feedback do you get from your U.S. customers in the U.S. market? Have they seen this before? Was this why are they choosing Eddy over all the other options that are out there?
Yeah, so I guess it's two-part. First, the reason for our expansion into the US, we go anywhere our partners take us. So some of the insurance companies we work with, they not only operate in Canada, but they operate in US. And they're saying, well, if I'm offering this to my Canadian clients, I'd also like to offer this to my US clients as well. So our partners also take us to the US as well. There's a gap. They've already been utilizing us in Canada. They like to offer the same service. So I think that's also really important to know. We did want to get our growth in Canada because we're Canadian owned and operated and our facilities in Ontario. It was just easier for us to start here. But really, there is other competitors in the market that offer leak detection. One of the things that really works well for us outside of the suite of products and the ability to be able to deal with all different asset classes, we also take care of the entire process, especially insurance companies. They don't want to be a leak detection company. Most of them don't want to be technology companies. They want to sell insurance and mitigate risk. And they want the technology partner to do all the heavy lifting. So that's where we check all the boxes, where we're saying, you know what? We're going to come in, we're going to take care of helping you promote through marketing campaigns. We're going to take care of having our installation network. So your client makes one call to Eddy, they get the product, they get installation, they get service and warranty, they get support and everything with us. So I think that's been a really big selling point for us in Canada. And quite honestly, that's translated really well for us in the US as well.
Glad you said that. So fair warning to any insurtech startups who have this big dream and want to jump in and think, I'm going to sell to all these insurance companies and they need my solution and they can't do it without me. Guess what? Even if that's true, even if you're right, and you're the next Einstein or whatever, they're most likely going to expect you to also service that product and to provide some level of account management and maybe even help them get it to the market and provide promotional materials and all of this. And I think that's sometimes shocking to some insurtech companies because at least the ones that are coming from the outside are may have a background in another industry and just think, okay, I'm an inventor and I've created a great solution that didn't exist before. And I know there's a need for it and that's been validated. But oftentimes, and I have direct experience with this as well as talking to other insurtechs, is that the insurance company or the insurance market may love your solution, but they might not know how to get that to the market. And you need to be prepared to do that as well. It's not enough to just develop the solution. You have to be a partner in bringing it to the market, and you need to be prepared for that, and you need to invest in that. And I think that's probably a big part of your role.
Yes, I was gonna say. It's funny. I used to when I got into the insurance space, I thought I'm going to go to these massive insurance companies, and exactly like what you said, they're like, oh. And I think we ticked off a lot of the boxes. You have the hardware, you have the install, you have the service. Here's a package deal. You're welcome. And they're like, well, how do I get it to the client? And it's like, okay, so now I have to put together a strategical plan based on your book of business, based on your premiums, based on what makes sense for you guys, and literally outline how you're going to be able to get adoption and how we can get this to your client. So it's, right. I honestly feel like 50% of my time, I probably work for the insurance companies because I'm like, okay, so based on the information I have, based on your claims, this is where we should start. These are the programs we should go with. This is what makes it. And it's also trial and error, right? Because I think when you have a new product, the insurance company is learning with you.
That's right.
So they're like, well, how am I going to use all this data? Because I think that's another big point that I probably haven't mentioned is we have a lot of data that we could provide insurance companies, which is a great thing, but also a very scary thing for them because they're like, what do I do with all this data? I'm getting all these alerts, I'm getting all these shutoffs. And I think another thing for insurtech or startups to keep in mind is you need to really be a part of the entire process with the insurance company and really break down, hey, this is the best way for you guys to adopt these programs. This is how you can utilize the data and kind of make it as easy as possible. Because to your point, you mentioned earlier, it takes years to get a program, right? Yeah. It's already such a long cycle, even when you have all the like check marks, right? So it makes it really important for you to make sure that you're helping support them.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, some carriers might even ask you, how do I price this? Like if it's affecting, you know, how they're going to underwrite the risk, you might even be involved in that process. I'm glad you mentioned data because a lot of this is happening at such a pace where, and carriers are saying this openly, we don't know how to ingest the data. And we're still working on traditional underwriting models. And a lot of that's going through its own cycle of automation as well. So it's a marriage of sorts. And it's more than just getting the purchase order or getting the account. You really have to be there alongside to support it. And I think a lot of carriers, rightfully so, are saying, look, I'm going to stay in my lane. It's our job to underwrite risk. It's our job to price it appropriately and provide coverage. And it's your job to be the technology solution and partner. And we're not going to step out of our lane. And I think a lot of carriers in their wisdom are realizing that some may have overstepped and tried to be something that they're not. And I think there's been a lot of correction. We've seen that on both sides of the border, where some insurers are going back to being more of a pure insurance company. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that because then people can focus on their core competencies. And that's a really neat thing because it creates a lot of opportunities for people to get in. So as far as challenges are concerned, I always like to ask the question, what would you say on or along the Eddy journey has been your biggest challenge that you guys had to overcome? And maybe you're still wrestling with it. Maybe you haven't overcome it yet.
Anytime you're dealing with a new product and you're educating a market, it's challenging. That applies to consumers that might not understand the technology. It's not something that they've had in their house for 200 years that they're familiar with and they get it right away. It's like, well, leak detection, why do I need it? I haven't had a water damage claim. I probably won't have it. So I think education, building awareness was definitely initially a challenge for us. But there's a lot that's even changed with the insurance market. There's commercials that are actually showing, talking about leak detection and flood detection and kind of helping us build that awareness. So I think initially that was our biggest challenge. And then the second part is it also translated to the insurance sector. In 2015, when I was talking to insurance about leak detection, it was like, no, we're not sure. Sounds too good to be true. You're going to stop a water damage claim? I don't know. I need years to think about it. I need to look at the underwriting. I need to figure out how it works. So I think even the insurance market has come a long way. For what it's worth, I'm going to say they still have some way to go, but from 2015 to 2021, it's been a huge transition for insurtech, for technologies, and water just being a part of that, right? And I'm sure you can kind of attest to that as well to see how much has changed the last 6 years. Like, I think one of the things that's also really interesting is a lot of these insurance companies, some of the large ones, have their own insurtech or their own labs where they're testing product. And this is still more or less a newer concept for this industry.
100%. And sometimes those, I dare I say it, some of those venture labs can be a black hole where like you just kind of fall in and you don't know where it begins and ends and what's happening there. Some are a little more robust than others. And I think though that the attempt to try to innovate from within, because I think there's, obviously it's no secret, especially in the P&C space, there's a profitability challenge. And so insurers can't just rely on investment income to offset, loss ratios and there's a crunch on, getting expenses down, and innovation plays a big part of that. So there has to be some level of innovation from within, but there also has to be an openness to listen more, I think, and to try new things. And I hate using buzz terms, but to fail fast. Like, let's do the dance, and if we step on each other's toes, let's fail fast, right? Or change the song, right? And actually, on that topic, what kind of music do you listen to? What's your...
You know what? I'm like the top 40s. I'm so unoriginal. Yeah. I'm like, whatever's on the radio, I'm a huge fan of. And as soon as it's gone, it's gone. So yeah, I don't think I listen to one genre of video. I'm just the top 40s type of person. So whatever's hot and new, I like. And then next month, I don't like it.
You would get along really well with my daughters and my wife. It's the same. And I, for some reason, am stuck on talk radio. That's a whole other psychoanalysis we could spend 3 hours on, though. But I should actually give a plug to like Kiss 92.5 or something like that, and see if they throw a sponsorship our way.
They're my favorite radio station, if that counts to help towards your sponsorship. Roz and Mocha show was my drive every morning.
There you go. So I was gonna say, if you're in the GTA, you would know, right? And actually, it's funny that as a radio guy, I love radio, and that's one of the things I miss about this new reality is like, because that's typically where you listen to radio is in the car.
Yeah.
Ironically, we all have radios in our home. Like, we could flip it on, but it's just like you're not used to like you have other options in the house, right? And they take priority. But it's funny, just around the whole top 40 topic. I learned, oddly enough, we were in the car as a family at 6:30 in the morning, and I was told to tune in to that radio station, and they're like, oh yeah, there was some sort of dance party thing happening at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had to stay on the station until it got there. We were going to be in the car for a while, and I'm like, it's too early in the morning for dance party. Who does that at 8 o'clock in the morning? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm a morning person, so my husband would despise that radio station because it's just too much happening for him. He does not want anyone to talk to him for the first hour he wakes up. Yeah. I'm a morning person. I wake up happy and jolly. I'm ready for a dance party at 6:30 a.m.
No, I want traffic and weather at the ones. I want news of the world. So
680 news.
I'm a 680 guy. Yeah, 642. Yeah. So there you go. I just plugged 3 radio stations. Let's see if anything comes of it. That wasn't planned, by the way. And I couldn't help but go down the music path because we talked about the Shkya, and how many different iterations there are of your name. I think you said Shania was another one.
Shania, yeah.
So, but we got it right here. There's no editing. Shkya, like, get it right, folks. It's not that hard. Right?
It is that hard. Yeah. It really is. I gotta give people a break.
So now anybody who called you Shania in the past is going to feel terrible if they're watching this.
Oh yeah, it's okay. I forgive them. I probably forgot anyway.
Yeah, it's okay, right? Those are little things. You can't sweat the small stuff in life. So next phase for Eddy Solutions. You already talked about going into the US. What's next? What's the next big milestone you guys are chasing after?
Ready to take over the world. Yeah, I think, Eddy, our goal is just to be the #1 leak detection company in North America and expand from there. I think we even have goals to be outside of North America at one point, right? Maybe closer to a 5-year plan. Like I mentioned, the greatest part about what we do is we're providing and solving a problem for everybody. Doesn't matter where in the world you are. If there's water running through a property, you need our system. So I think for us is the opportunities are endless, but we're really conscious about focusing in and making sure everything that we do and touch is done perfectly. You mentioned earlier, you don't want to boil the ocean, and that was definitely not our intention, which is why we started into residential, and we're gradually growing, right? Making sure we've nailed down the products in Canada. We've done really well here. Now it's the US, and then looking for other opportunities outside from there. So I think that's another really important thing for any startup. I don't think we're a startup per se anymore at this point, but it's just laser focused, right? Just continuing to grow and making sure you're taking advantage of every opportunity that comes your way.
Well, and this is the thing I love about featuring different companies on this podcast is that we can, we use that term startup loosely, but I want to talk to the folks that have gone over the arch and are on the other side, and can share the what to do's, the what not to do's, the lessons learned. And you were very open about some of the different business development strategies, and I appreciate that you shared that, because that I'm sure that's helpful to a lot of people that are trying to figure out their next move and how this crazy world of insurance works. What do your customers say about you? Just in some closing thoughts. You talked about wanting to be the number one leak detection company in the world, if I got that right.
Yes.
Okay, good. But what are your customers, the customers that love you guys, what do they say? Like, what stands out about Eddy? What do they say about you guys?
I think two parts really stands out about Eddy. We do what we say, which I think is really important for any company. When we say we're going to hold your hand and assist you from beginning to end, we really, truly do. And I think the second part is any company or product that's innovating, it needs to work. So when you're able to capture leaks, when you're able to share these successes with your client, that they were able to save a ton of water, or they were able to mitigate risks of having a water damage claim, and they're able to really, because it's something that they get to see the benefits of, right? Yeah. The truth is within the first 6 months or a year, you find some sort of event, some larger than others, but something happens, something goes wrong, right? You said earlier, in insurance, water is the new fire. So we get to show our value to our customers really quickly. And I think that's what our clients focus on, is the successes that they have with the product. And I think that's just one component, because it's one thing to capture a leak event, but most people don't know what to do. So having that 24/7 monitoring, having that support all the time to be like, hey, here's the steps you take next. Here's how we're here to help you. Do you want to utilize our plumbing services? I think it's just really being a part of the client journey as they're getting used to your technology, and just being along the ride with them. I think those are the things that our clients appreciate most about Eddy.
Awesome. And where can, if anyone wants to learn more, how can they find you?
EddySolutions.com.
Perfect. And that's with a Y, not IE, right?
Yes, EDDY.
Awesome. Shkya, an hour blew by like we just started talking. And we even got to talk about a little bit of music and some wolf shirts. I'm stuck on that topic for some reason. I don't know why.
I just want to make sure nobody thinks they're my wolf shirts.
Don't worry. Yeah, and I'm not going to edit that out. I'm sorry. Like we got to have some laugh tracks here to go on, right? I do look forward to a follow-up discussion to talk about. I'd like to hear more in a follow-up discussion just around like the U.S. expansion and just the growing pains of expansion, and some of the different moves that you maybe had to make. I did not want to talk about the pandemic today because there's bigger things to focus on. And so, thank you for making it interesting, and I really look forward to many follow-up discussions. So thank you, Shkya, for your time today.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Thank you.